Well, it's good to see you. Good to see you, Sue. Good to see you,
Good to see you
John.
too.
So soon after just seeing you. So nice.
You're looking sharp.
Yeah, so you guys are just off of a
With the special scarf.
tour, right?
What?
that- You
No,
guys are
we don't
It was
tour. We
1 week
just
residency.
we don't tour. We just do groups of shows occasionally. And every time we announce we're doing a group of shows, there's all these people who get sort of annoyed and pissed off in our social media because they think we're leaving them out. It's so I think I have to come up with a permanent disclaimer that goes up every time we announce we're doing shows that we're old, we aren't paid well enough, we're you know, like we can't do these big tours. We're doing little things and spread it over many years. Hopefully we'll come to your town soon.
Okay, well, that's a great.
We have recorded that now. We have a transcript. We can.
There you go. I mean, that's a great place to
It's like
start.
every time people seem like, I mean, I could be misreading it, but people actually seem kind of almost angry that, you know,
That's
only,
the internet,
you know,
right? It's
oh,
very angry. No matter what you do, you're leaving someone out.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's a good slogan for the internet. No matter what you do, the internet, no matter what you do, you're leaving someone out. I like that.
It's easy to be angry when it's impersonal.
Yeah.
You know, that hike you took through the rainforest that you totally heartlessly failed to upload to social internet. My brother is a quadriplegic and could have enjoyed that footage of you in that remote location. You know, think next time when you decide to not post something to the internet and keep it to yourself.
so cool.
You're totally being insensitive.
Well, I love it. Let's kick it off here with the next not scheduled on your not touring set of appearances at the Lafayette Electronic Arts Festival 2022, which is part of your not tour. It's normal for some things to come to your attention. So thank you for joining us, but not really in the same place, all virtually. Can join together via a cluster of electrons on my screen here.
Why, hello.
Hello,
I'm Mark.
I'm Sue.
And so we've got special guests, Negativland, joining us for what's bound to be a rambunctious conversation and an attempt to do an interview, joined by
and Sue C.
Yes.
I can't take credit for being in Negativland. I can only
No.
take credit for being my own entity that's now
Yeah.
closely associated with the band. So that
Yeah.
means if they say something I don't agree with, I don't have to worry about it.
There you
Oh, I
go.
love that. That's
Good.
that'll
Always got
probably
One of the many reasons I'm still keeping track of to stay a separate persona.
right.
Yeah.
That-
But
that-
it's a very much we've been working together with Sue C for the last, well, now is it getting on over 2
Well,
years?
2019, couple
Yeah.
of years slipped down the drain real
So
quick.
yeah, it's very collaborative. It's, you know, you could look at it as live cinema with sound or live sound with live cinema. Yeah, but it's very much a collaborative thing between all of us creating these shows together.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of check
Yeah.
in on that because I'm familiar with Sue's work and she's actually performed at Leaf in the past,
Yes.
some other festivals that I've been involved with, and I'm sort of curious, like, so you said dating back to 2019, what brought you guys together, you know, that first time?
A phone call from John. Nope, he's that way.
Sue and I came of age in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I've known Sue for 22 years or so, and I met her through she was part of this unbelievable record label, Worth Loring Musork, before she even became a visual artist.
Say that again slowly, the name.
Worth Loring Musork.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's important to say it kind of slowly so everyone can get it.
So before Sue C, I think the official stage name was Sue and the Musorkians. That's so anyway. We played, so we've been doing, under my own handle, Wobbly, Sue and I have been collaborating for decades.
Yeah. Doing the Musorkians plus Wobbly.
Yeah. And, you know, we played Barcelona Sonar Festival and a series of local film festivals. And, you know, when you're playing live music with an improvisatory bent and you don't know what you're going to be doing from second to second, it can be very hard to find someone who is also as much of an improviser. And Sue, from the very beginning, is one of the only people I've ever really felt comfortable or even safe playing with, because she has reflexes to the microsecond. If the music stops, Sue can stop. If the music suddenly gets happy or dark, for some strange reason, just through shadings of light, like Sue is right there. And it's, you feel particularly vulnerable as a musician because it's like you're the only person who's not at the show. Your back is usually to the screen. You don't know what the audience is seeing. It's like playing music with a guitarist who is soloing that you can't hear, that you can only hear when you watch the video playback later. So usually my experience of playing with somebody who was doing the visuals were you you're totally left out and they're doing something completely different. But yeah, from the very beginning, when watching a video playback of what Sue was doing, like, she's got it. She got you covered. Like, it's always better. So you took 10 years off to raise a family, as happens sometimes. And I was our mutual friend Letitia Tsunami, who also collaborates with Sue, sort of let it slip during dinner one time. Like, I think Sue's ready to begin working again. And yeah, it didn't take me long to call Sue at that point.
That's awesome. That's a great analogy with the improvisational aspect and the sort of the guitarist in another room or something.
And for
Right.
those of you listening at home, I'm giving a thumbs up to what John just said. And I would also add that what's been, well, I've been doing part of Negativland for 42 years now. And what's been wonderful about working with Sue has been that besides the fact that she's an awesome, wonderful, and amazing person, is that we're able to kind of improvise and change things up from night to night and from moment to moment in a way we've never been able to, working with a visual artist with what we're doing. So it's been very freeing to kind of, to reiterate what John was saying, like, she's there, she's on it. And if we decide to stretch out and create a little sort of mini piece in between pieces that was never planned, that happens a lot with us. And so it's, there's just been something really very creatively stimulating and invigorating to just realize we could change the set from night to night. Like, we can really mix it up in a whole new way, which keeps us on our toes, keeps it challenging, keeps it really fresh and alive. And I don't know, it just kind of keeps it real in a way that being this far into a so-called career feels really good. It feels good. So.
Yeah, people will ask me, so you mean she's like a VJ? And it's like, no. I like to think of it more as like handcrafted live cinema. And then people are like, what the hell is that? And yeah. If I describe it a little bit, they start to understand, but you kind of have to see it, I think, to really get what you're doing. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, about what it is.
What do you do, Sue?
Yeah, what is it you do?
I don't do anything at all. Yes, what I do is still incredibly difficult to describe if you've never seen it. I thought that in my 10 years off that all those students that I taught would have started, oh, hello, Kat.
Oh, hello.
Would have been out there in the world.
Try to steal your shtick.
Doing more. Well, I want to share it. I'm like, I don't want to be alone out here. So yeah, so well, what do? I tried to be a VJ and it was not working because I think I have a very musical mind. I realized that my brain just fills in music whenever there's space. So I wake up with songs in my head. I constantly have some music playing in my head, which is sometimes irritating, but is way better than some, negative voice that would probably come up instead, being a human being. So I just think about music and I visualize music too fast to use video clips. That was my real motivation, was how do I get away from having to find a video clip and push play and mix it with another one? Because by the time I do that, the moment's gone. And then I discovered that you could use a live camera. And the first camera I used was the first webcam made for an Apple laptop. And it was supposed to be an eye, and it had a little foot that it stood on. Remember that
yeah.
thing?
Oh, yeah.
There was no way to connect it to anything. It just had to be on its foot. So then I had to, with Sue and the Musorkians, I had this tripod and I gaff taped it. And then from once I got that, some setup that worked and some lights that worked, and I started moving things with my hands, I just realized that was my very unique calling in the universe, to just try to express music through visuals. And really it came down to controlling light. And I went through a very long, super abstract phase.
Can you maybe describe for our listeners at home
Yeah.
that when they come to a Negativland Susie show, they walk up and they see, I've got all of my funny knobs and switches and devices plugged in. John has got all of his iPhones and iPads all laid out. And then in your setup, they see something that looks really unusual.
Yeah. So what it's evolved into is a camera, a laptop, a light pad. It's a very flat surface that creates a very even light, and then hundreds of objects. So for the Negativland show, I use things like clothespins and paper clips and weird rubbery balls and old slides and photographs and disco beads, like Mardi Gras beads, and a lot of weird papers, and then little flashlights, my hands,
The N95 mask.
an N95 mask, anything really, depending on the content of the show. And then what was really inspiring working with Negativland was I went back to this idea of like, I don't ever want to touch a video clip. And I was like, John's using all these voice samples. There must be something I could do with video that wouldn't make me feel like I was stuck, but would make it feel like I could have a conversation in a different way with the audio. So I actually did bring back video as this other layer that shows up, but it gets manipulated and mushed around in space by the other objects. So it's been super fun and has expanded my work to places I didn't know it was going to go.
Nice.
So for listeners at home, it's important to call out that coming to a Negativland Susie show, this is not going to be about a lot of sing-along and choreographed, synchronized dance moves from you and the band. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that was the show we did years ago. You know, we're not doing the choreographed dance moves because John's knees are bad, so he can't do that anymore.
Dance without moving your feet. Here, I have a shot like for the this won't work for radio, but here's a shot of like Sue's table thing. Like Mark and I
Lots of
are actually
bowls.
fairly boring live to look at. We just turn a bunch of knobs. It's like air traffic control. But if you go to the show, very quickly you realize that the completely abstract light pattern behind you is being determined entirely in real time, and that you can see the things on the screen actually physically on the table on the stage in front of you being moved around underneath the camera. So like here's another shot of like all these colorful little things. Sue uses printouts of words and can put them under the camera, and you just see all of this stuff. So yeah, you kind of have to see it to believe it. Like, what is that? What is that? That's already totally abstract. But by the time it goes through Sue's difference frames filters, it's even more abstract. Oh, they're the look up there. It's the
Spoons.
multicolor utensils and spoons.
Yeah, that's a favorite thing. The first time I ever saw Sue doing something with a bunch of utensils, which just you see it on the table and you look like, well, it's just some utensils. And then when you see what she does with it on screen, I was like blown away. It's like, oh my God. This is so great.
I think too that like that aspect of it where, you know, like that you pointed out, John, where the, you know, you can see Sue doing something and then you're seeing something that's kind of like that. It's different because of, I don't know, filtering and whatnot, but you can see that there's a relationship and there's this sort of tension that's set up between like, what am I looking at the screen or am I watching her with her hands? And I think that might also sort of have the added benefit of kind of pointing out that like you guys are essentially doing the same thing with the sound, even though it might be a little bit more difficult to, you know, because people I think have have learned to, like, oh, it's a laptop. I don't know, they
We're
press
not using any laptops. Yeah, we don't have laptops.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I-
but
It's
Yeah.
the typical electronic music thing where the
that's-
hand
yeah.
gestures are so disconnected from the abstraction of the sounds that you hear that some audiences are a little left on the outside of it.
Yes,
So,
but, and I'm raising my hand, the reason why my setup is more, I mean, I'm drawn to doing a more hardware-based setup, but also the visuals of it are, I actually use little yoga blocks cut in half to lift my setup a tiny bit up from the back, so it tilts toward the audience. And so I know people don't know everything I'm doing, how could they? But there's plenty of times when I am turning a knob and they are going to hear the sound go, and they'll see my
Right.
finger turning a knob, and hopefully, and John's making gestures on all the iPads. And so we're hoping that the audience more or less gets that we're really doing all this live in front of you. As electronic
yeah.
and odd as and unusual as it is, it's really being created for you right now.
I
If
find
there was a
iPad-
way for John to actually play with physical samples
Yep.
and move them around, he would. But unfortunately, the interface is digital
Right.
to do that. But he really is moving things around in a analogous way to how I'm moving things around. And Mark is moving stuff around all of his pedals and whatever crazy world he has going on. So
And
Yeah,
also plenty of times in the middle of the show, John will change something up from the night before in some way that if I wasn't wearing my N95 mask, you would see that I'm laughing really hard. I end up laughing on stage quite a lot. So
well, I remember when we went on tour in 2019 together the first time, we did those 10 shows, and you were, I didn't really understand how freeing it was to not have to do the same exact thing every night. And we ran out of paper making new set lists. Remember?
Yeah.
Make a new set list. Like, we have no more paper. So
Yeah.
every night was different. It was super fun.
and for at least for Negativland and for my personal experience with Negativland, it was unprecedented that we would have a totally different set list every night. Then when we did the shows on the West Coast, at least at the beginning, there was no set list at all. And that was total, for me, it was like mind blower. Like, can we really do that? Oh my
We
God.
saved a
But-
whole 15 minutes not having to discuss the set list.
yeah. And then we saved on paper, like you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
Tons of paper.
Planet loves us.
But I
Your
think that
Nico
also
feed out
speaks to the liveness of the show, even though you're using electronics and you're not playing a guitar that you can see someone playing, that when you stop, it's quiet. You are playing improvisationally and you can change things at any moment. It could go any direction, which is why it's still fun to play live.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
think
that's the
that-
point for us to be playing live, is that it's really live. Yeah.
That comes across to the audience, but like I still think that, the visuals, Sue doing the visuals, there's a moment that many people who see the show describe the same thing, where they say, it took me 20 minutes to realize I was at the back of the room. It took me 20 minutes to realize that what Sue was doing was the visual. Like, I thought, I'm just used to visuals being abstract. I'm used to them, the visuals were very sophisticated and complicated. So I just assumed they were all done in advance, but like these coincidences kept happening. And then I just walked to the front of the room and I saw what Sue was doing with her hands, and I made the connection, but it took me 20 minutes before I even realized. And that's boy, that's how good we are.
Which
Well,
is
I
an
think-
interesting.
One way I've described it is I feel like that in our own ways, both Negativland's work and Sue's work, we both have this kind of high tech, low tech, no tech approach to what we're doing. And I've always really, that's something about Negativland's work that I really always think is part of hopefully some of the charm of what we do. And with Sue, that's why, it just seemed like it made such a good sense that it was a good fit. So.
I have a quick question related to that. So like, at the beginning of the show, I'll probably have to get up there and like thank my sponsors and whatnot, and just thank everybody for showing up.
Who is like Amazon.com, Best Buy, who else are the
Evans
sponsors of
Insurance.
this festival?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vladimir.
Insurance companies.
Yeah. No, but what I was going to say is like, is it appropriate for me to point out that like, this is live, like everything is like, there's not like this is more like a jazz ensemble than it is a, a DJ set. Or you just leave it. Don't say
Well,
anything.
your theater, we're performing in a theater with raked seating, right?
Yeah.
See, and are we going to be on the floor, right?
No, you'll be on the stage.
Okay, maybe because when we're on the floor, it's just great when people can really see what we're doing better. And if we're up above, how high is the stage?
Like a normal stage, probably like 36.
Oh, it's kind of high. Okay.
Like a
We'll figure it
normal.
out. We'll
like
figure it out when we're there, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you.
That I always think providing context to the audience is great because I'm always trying to teach people things whenever I can, and that there's still really interesting things to do with electronics, and don't feel left out because it seems like some weird black box. So
Yeah. Okay, great. Because I mean, typically, so you've been to some other events, these Leaf things, we get an audience that like, I mean, this will be slightly different, but typically the audience is, they want to learn something. They want to know more about like, what the hell is this? So, I try to give them a little bit of context. So,
and also invite them to come hang out after the show.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
And
Yep.
touch the iPads and the knobs and the
Ooh.
everyday objects.
Well, the thing I've noticed when we do a show where we're on the floor, the audience seems to feel more comfortable just walking right up to you in the gear and checking it out. But we certainly could invite people to come on stage if they want to look at more closely what we have.
I mean, I'm open to that. When you guys show up,
Sure.
we can set it up that way because the screen can be it's on wheels. It can be like rolled forward right to the edge of the stage if you wanted to set up on the floor, and then we just run the cable around and it's going to be rear projected. So, the relative distance between the projector and the screen is controllable.
Yeah, that might be good. In a theater with the rake seating, being on the floor does seem to work fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm open to
and
that.
it can create a little bit more intimacy for the audience experience with the performance, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, we can figure it out when you guys get there, and you can make the call.
I'm going to jump in and just ask a question about, it's interesting hearing all of this discussion about the live performance and the spontaneousness of that, because I know from my own experience, my immediate association with the work of Negativland is not about spontaneity. It's about very, orchestrated and structured sound artifacts, that take you on a listening experience. So it's interesting to know that this sort of next evolutionary step is taking you in this direction.
Well, but what I would say about that though, is that Negativland has always approached live performance from the first show we did in 1980, where the very first show we ever played. We created it completely for performance. We were not trying to do anything. Live is its own medium. And it's actually it's uninteresting to try and just duplicate the studio is the studio. You can do all this incredible stuff because time is all compressed and layered on top of each other, but when we're on the radio, we try to do radio shows that are utilizing the medium of radio in ways that only radio can do. And that's been our radio show that's been on since 1981, Over the Edge. But live, we've always tried to approach it as its own unique medium. So that's been definitely part of the ethic and aesthetic. But I think that this current collaboration we're doing just allows us to take that even further than we ever have, in a way that, as I said, is quite inspiring to me. Really is. So,
yeah, well, I guess to sort of piggyback on what Brian just said, I've actually never seen you guys play live, and my experience has always been through the recorded work, which again, like to me, sounds like this meticulously crafted stuff. So it's really, I'm super excited to see how you take the same people, well, maybe not the exact same people, but the same sort of general concept, and subject it to this to the live format. So I'm excited.
John is an encyclopedia of music. That's a big part of it.
Well, I guess it's, for me, my way into Negativland was the radio show, which I discovered in 1985. And the light bulb moment for me was, I was already really into electronic music, which was this studio-based mystery. How are these sounds made? They can't be made in real time. You need a studio. And yet, I tuned in 1985, and Negativland was playing live on the air, and they were playing live instruments, making noises with their mouths, singing. But there were also 3 turntables and all these tape decks hooked up, and they'd be, playing pop music by other people and then playing more instruments on top. They'd be playing 4 different cut-ups of talk radio and cutting them in with each other to make new conversations, and doing it in this really offhanded, spontaneous way. So the radio show was always live music, and really not exactly, sometimes very self-indulgent live music. Like, it was on in the middle of the night, 3 hours, like it could go on. And it was the definition of how you improvise in a studio electronic age. So the concerts were always sort of halfway between that and the studio records, where you'd have to, plot it out. There would be a set list. And then the studio records would be, weeks and months and years of baking down those improvs into compositions. The studio records are definitely very meditated and mediated. Like, they are compositions, but it wouldn't be nothing without the radio show as an improv. At one point, music does have to exist as a real-time performance before you can get to the composition.
Yeah, it is endless. It is endlessly curious to me about the fact that we stumbled into doing this radio show. No one would have thought it would be on the air literally 3 and 4 decades later. But that the way that the albums inform the performances inform the radio informs the performances, the radio informs the album. Like, they all speak to each other, influence and inspire each other in all kinds of interesting ways. But I think, for instance, the way that John and I can sometimes improvise on stage, where we can come to pretty much a dead halt and turn a corner to a whole new piece, and we didn't have it planned. But I feel like that comes especially from doing a gazillion hours of radio, where you have this sort of baked in sense of the segue, the shift, the scene, the sonic scene change. And John and I, sometimes we're off, but generally we're like pretty dialed in, where we kind of both kind of a sense of, okay, that was winding down, so now we're going to the next thing. And actually, I don't know what the next thing is, but it's going to be different, and it's going to sound like we know what we're doing. And and as I said,
You
then
know what you're doing
well, I guess, but
on a fundamental level. You just don't know in the next microsecond.
Right. Well, there is some sense of accepting the fact that, okay, I've actually been doing this for so long. We've been doing this for so long. Yeah, maybe we kind of sort of know what we're, I don't know why I was put here on Earth exactly, but maybe I was put here because I'm just really good at making really funny noises with my friends. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Why we're here.
Well,
Well,
my
yeah, that happens to
introduction-
me too. I don't know. I have this idea of a set list, or not even a set list, but like, okay, we're starting here. The end is this, and we're going to go through all these moments at some point. And, sometimes I just start doing something, like I introduce something new, and it's like just turning it going. And then Sean obviously is like done with that thought. I'm like, okay, well, I'm here, and I'm just going to trust that this is the right place to be, and just find how this works. And like 9 out of 10 times, or 8.5, like I think, oh, well, I found something. And then the times where I'm sure I didn't, we look at it later and John's like, no, that was great. And I'm like, well, it's all, it's all perspective anyway.
Yeah.
Well, for
Well,
all
you
this
do.
talk of improv, like, you are really meticulous. Like, this thing that you do with the bowls, those bowls are like preparations for the different songs. Like, oh, we're on this
Gonna
song.
ask,
And
yeah.
you are totally ready. You are totally,
Yeah.
it's
The
not
bowl-
all just off the cuff.
No,
So
no, it's not off the cuff, but it's
No,
just, you don't
sorry, go ahead.
know when you're performing live with people, you don't know exactly what everyone's going to do. It's like the way I described it was, after we did this show enough times, I think it was on the West Coast tour, like show 3, I think I said, you know what it is now? It's a giant stew. And it doesn't really matter what order you put the ingredients in. If you cook it long enough, meaning give us an hour or 70 minutes, you get a really delicious result.
Very nice. Yeah, I was going to ask if
It's
you.
normal for some stews to come to your attention.
What were we gonna ask? Well,
No, I was just gonna say, I wondered if Sue, you had like, concoctions of various ingredients in these bowls that sort of work well together, based on where the guys are going with the sound. Like, oh, we're starting to get noisy and chaotic. I got to go to bowl number 2 and 3. That's where my noisy and chaotic source stuff is, or something like that.
Yeah, more or less. Not all of it fits in a bowl, but the bowls hold a lot of like small things that they would just be a mess. So like little miniature pom-poms and weird, like, I don't know, what else is in there? Like tiny rubber hands and popsicle sticks and little clothespins.
I love it when you take your iPhone, which has this kind of jeweled case that it's in, and you put that
yeah,
under
an
the
iPhone
camera
case.
and you just sort of slowly move your iPhone around, turning it into this manipulated object to create visuals. But at the same time, it's an iPhone, and there's something about it's inhabiting all these different spaces of what it is and refers to, and also, but it's using it in a way it's not supposed to be. And it's just great.
it's a sparkly
It's
iPhone
good.
case that abstracts into pure light. Like it's
Yeah,
just
that's a great iPhone case. My
Yeah, it's
daughter
good.
picked that out.
But
Well, I
don't,
mean,
but
it's like
yeah.
I have stuff that I know. I've always kind of been this way with my work. I know what I can make rhythmic. So I have certain things that work with beats and certain things that just don't, I feel like. And then I have certain things that work thematically with the conversations, the samples that John's playing. So some of it is actually the words that you'll see on the screen. Either they're cut out of paper or they're printed on photographs. So that's been really fun also, that I can just have this direct conversation with, oh, we're talking about this now. Well, I have these 5 either photographs or paper cutouts that also have these words on them, so it can join the conversation. And then a lot of it is like mood and texture, and what I know will be colorful if I feel like it needs to be colorful, or what will move slowly well and hold your attention versus what wants to be fast. And yeah, and then sometimes I forget stuff, and at the end I'm like, I forgot these 4 things, and I'm like, we're just gonna do them all and just gonna make sure I didn't forget them.
And I would add too that we've done this show now enough that it has slowly settled into kind of, it's taken shape, and now there is a general structure to this particular show we're going to do for you guys. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
And
yeah.
I would assume also that there's like when you're using words or recognizable things under the camera, people are prone to like stories. They invent stories in their head, both by the things that they're hearing and by what they're seeing. And so you have that opportunity to somehow introduce this loose narrative into the thing, or is that
Yeah,
a piece of it?
Yeah.
definitely.
We're
That I
both
think
doing
was-
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think there's a loose abstracted narrative that's happening from what we're doing sonically. Absolutely. Because there's lots and lots of language throughout the whole show. And then Sue is expanding on that and creating a visual narrative in a way. And yeah, you speak to it and John can too, because it's something that when John was first telling me about Sue's work, that was one of the things he was saying, that, you were, yes, that you in this very completely unique, impossible to describe way, you are visually telling a story. And it turns out you very conscious about that.
How do you do it, Stu?
How do you do it?
I don't know.
And there you
how
go,
do I do
listeners
it?
at home. She doesn't know.
I don't know. Well, to me, the story is like, it's always really abstract, except when it's not. So there are moments where it's like, oh, I'm literally going to say, tolerate uncertainty, because that's what John is saying. But now, what story, what object can tell an uncertain type of story? And for me, I am always animating things and trying to get them to be in a relationship with each other, and making sure that they're doing something. Like I am just moving things around, but if I just went and did this the whole time, there would be no story. It's really in how objects are moving and relating to each other, and how long you're seeing them for, and whether or not you really know what it is, or you don't know what it is. And I thought that it would be I didn't think that it would work so well with Negativland's music. I trust John, and I've respected him for many years. So I took the leap of faith, but then I realized, oh, it actually really does work, because you want to have some visual thing to guide you, but you don't want to be told exactly what to think.
Yeah.
You don't want to be told exactly what to experience. So you need to give enough information that it's not boring, or it has no relevance to the music, but not so much that you feel like you're just watching, an edited film that has a specific story.
Yep.
So somehow the combination of all the samples, the sound samples and the vocal samples, along with this abstract enough video, really allows people, from what I've heard, to just think openly and then kind of personalize the experience. Gives them space,
Yeah.
gives them a context.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that for us in Negativland, we really love working with visuals and what we're doing, but the beauty of music is how much it leaves open to your brain to piece it all together, particularly with collage, and there's something about the in-between, the liminal space is what you're, as the experiencer of the sound, are part of creating what this all means in a way that I think makes it very powerful and personal. When you have visuals, you can kind of concretize that to a degree that it takes that away from you, and it robs you, actually, I think, of part of the magic. And so that's what's so, Sue has enough things that kind of give you a moment to kind of go, yeah, this is locked into what they're doing. But there's so much of it where she's working in a more ethereal, dreamlike, kind of impressionistic, intuitive way, that it gives you the visuals, but it lets your brain, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it lets you
I
fill
think
it in.
you're
Yeah.
making great sense. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like you start to draw your own connections between these various elements without it being drawn out exactly for you.
And you have no choice, because your brain is constantly trying to make sense of the environment.
And
So
yeah.
you can't turn your brain off, and it's always going to try to associate a sound with an image. And I think it's really healthy to have the chance to have these dissociative things going on. But I also have read that if you don't recognize what you're seeing, then you use a different part of your brain to determine what it is. You don't go to past experiences, you go to other places to try to create meaning. And that, I think, is part of what makes the experience of coming to see the show so interesting, because everyone's going to walk away with their own meaning.
Well, who wouldn't want to see the show after, an endorsement like that?
I don't know, boring people.
Come join us. Come join us.
Oh, we've already sold a bunch of tickets, so that's a great thing.
That's cool. It's great.
I mean,
That's
I'm
good.
excited about that. I think you guys will have an audience that is going to be very appreciative of what you're doing, and people seem very excited
Yeah.
about.
Can I tell, I may have told David this before, but for some reason, it was quite inexplicable. It was when we went through the U2, adventure, lawsuit, debacle, whatever you want to call it. There was some writer at the Boulder Weekly in Boulder, Colorado, that wanted to do a story on it, and we ended up on the front cover. We were the cover story of the Boulder Weekly, and that was one of the only writers that managed to get Casey Kasem, who was the top 40 DJ outtakes we used that inspired the whole record. That guy was able to get him on the phone for an interview. He was actually quoted in it. And to this day, it was just sort of a what WTF kind of a, like, what? How is this happening in
Make
Boulder,
sure
Colorado?
that guy is at the show.
Yeah, who I can't remember who that guy is. Like, who is that? Who was that guy?
Right. Didn't you guys, you did a live performance or performances in Boulder, correct?
Yes, we've performed in Denver. We've performed in Boulder. I've also I've lectured at the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art about the history of our work, and yeah, we love coming. We love coming to that part of the country.
I haven't been there for a while. I'm a big fan of the band Biota. They're from Fort Collins, so I shout out to Biota. That's all I got. But
Wow.
legendary for that.
Wait, isn't Borba Tamagas from Colorado, or am I wrong?
Who?
Borba Tamagas, aren't they from Colorado?
Got
Probably.
me.
Not sure.
Don't know.
It's the one they all played with the baritone sax that they would hold their bells against they'd hold their bells of their saxes against each other and play.
No, I
into
know the
each other's
band. I just
sax.
don't. I just.
Oh, okay. No, you have to know because you know because you're.
I don't know. I don't know.
But John would know because he
understand
knows
where-
everything about all avant-garde music.
He does, and he
Everything.
has decades of Negativland samples literally in his head, and then also across 17 or how many is
That's
it?
right.
5 iPads.
Yes. Yes, we are able to very much bring the deceased members of our group are very present in our records and our shows because we have all kinds of, to whatever degree their quote unquote voice was in what they chose to sample. We've got all kinds of bits and pieces of them in our shows, which always makes me feel good when I hear those things.
So even in these the new shows, you reach back into the history, into the archives, and you're pulling stuff that people might recognize from old recordings and things like that.
Yeah, or it might just be stuff we recognize, but there's certainly, if it depends how diehard of a fan you are.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
there's certainly things that pop up in the show where someone might go, oh, you're using that. I mean, we really enjoy taking something that had a very specific use and context on an old Negativland project and reusing it in a completely different way. That's a lot of fun to do. Yeah, you can collage with I think these last two albums we did, The True False and The World Will Decide, John kind of proposed the idea that we give ourselves permission to actually collage with ourselves and dig back into some old stuff and find new ways to use it. And that's turned out to be really fruitful and fun. Yeah.
There's this thing before this tour, before the records came out, when we were working towards them, we were sort of breaking in the new material on the road, but we were also playing a lot of older Negativland pieces. There was sort of a greatest hits tour. And of course, that thing that happens, it was just ridiculous. People would hear the first 3 seconds of a familiar tape that they'd grown up with from the 80s or 90s, and the entire room would like burst into applause, like, oh my God, they're playing Time Zones, or oh my God, they're playing Christianity is Stupid. But then, of course, the rest of the tape, the next 3 minutes would just be the tape. And what we realized very quickly is that all you need to do is play that first 3 seconds of the tape. You don't need to play the entire song. Just
Well,
like
also-
you get that same cascading, like euphoria of like, oh my God, I know this, but you only need 5 seconds of it. And then you actually get to mainline that rush like over and over again if you just fragment it further,
But it's also, isn't it fun to I think it's fun to then basically we're torturing our audience where we tease them with a little thing from a piece that they love and like, no, we're not actually doing that piece. That's all you get.
well, you don't want it to be too Vegas where it's just like Prince doing a medley of his greatest 20
No,
hits.
no. But it's sort of like, yeah, or what ending the show with playing Shop as Usual and Avoid Panic Buying. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Or we
Nice.
did a version of Christianity is Stupid where we cut in the guy ranting communism is good with an Apple product launch talking about how people don't need to own things anymore. They can just stream them from Apple. And that's perfectly modern.
Yeah, we definitely believe in if we end up doing any of our older material, we try to treat it with as much disrespect as we possibly can. And there's no attempt at trying to be faithful to it at all. We're just we gotta keep it real, keep it interesting. And most of the show we're going to be doing for Leaf is mostly all stuff you've never heard for the most part. So
Great. Perfect.
Exciting to know. Well, I'm going
Or
to jump in as
see.
the buzzkill guy and say that we
yes,
got about
Buzzkill guy.
10 minutes left for our conversation today. But we've touched on a number of points I think would be interesting to kind of explore a little bit further. One of them being Negativland's history with fair use. and also, the concept that today you've got things like TikTok where, these behaviors are being openly encouraged, where there's been sort of a punitive response to your same playfulness in years past. So I'm kind of curious, what you have to say about some of that.
John, yeah, we can all, I was just one thing I think about that is that TikTok is just incredible because you have this incredibly transgressive, avant-garde, underground art practice of appropriation, repurposing, and transformation is now a thing that bazillions of kids all over planet Earth do every day on their, and not only that, but record labels want them to. It's a way you're actually achieving some viral hit status for your new single, is if you can get kids to, quote, steal a chunk of this new song and do some dance or lip sync to it. And so, yeah, it's all completely, everything, it's all been turned on its head, and certainly we're under no illusions that anything we do is transgressive in any way at all, which I think it once truly was, but it's not. But we still find collage of really interesting, complex, we still are doing it because we find it to be a really useful way to talk about our world and our culture and ideas. And obviously the copyright laws have not changed, but I think the thinking around it has evolved. I mean, even YouTube, you may get a few copyright strikes, but they have a video they've made that they're very aware of fair use and that it's important to the arts and creativity and the evolution of art and culture. Like, they get it. I've spoken to lawyers who work at YouTube, and like they're a giant corporation with all this money trying to, operate as a profit-making thing, but they actually are fairly savvy to the fact that that this is important, that you should be able to reuse bits and pieces of things in new ways, that it is part of how culture and art and creativity and ideas evolve.
A lot of our old friends from Creative Commons were all some of YouTube's first hires in 2007. They just raided the Creative Commons staff. It's really, really scary. But no, my experience, my friend Eva has an 11-year-old daughter, older now, Zazie, who just TikTok, she showed me the interface, and it's amazing. It's a social media platform that takes the Adobe Premiere video editing interface and wraps it up like it's a social media app. And I was seeing this 11-year-old videotaping herself and then trimming the video cuts for maximum comic impact. She was an 11-year-old showing me the ins and outs of how to video edit. So there's a lot of empowerment there. There's a lot of, when Zazie looks at the television news and sees the timing and pacing of cuts, she knows how an edit can turn a totally truthful person into someone that looks like they're lying simply by trimming a cut by 200 milliseconds. Zazie is seeing it. But of course, she's also being led down this rabbit hole of dancing and presenting herself and making herself look cute while doing dances for things that could get uploaded 3 million hits. And she's going down the rabbit hole of going, oh my God, this dance only got 500,000 hits. What am I doing wrong with my life? It's just something to know about and watch out for, because it's been a crazy 5 years where, of course, pop culture is mostly for teenagers, but now it's being made by teenagers who are calling themselves influencers. And some of the economics of how money is recompensed and brought to these people are, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. We tried to get into that a bit on our last record, but it's happening to us live on the ground too. There are good things and there are bad things, and I don't think we have anything more complex to say about it than that.
Well, I have to say that I think TikTok is brilliant for the fact that it's bringing the desire to create video filters to the masses. Every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, well, there's Steina Vasulka's violin power piece right there in TikTok.
Right. As a patch.
Lines, that's right there. Also Steina's thing right there in TikTok. Now it's there's just one where it's like a 9 there's this thing that I've taught students. It's like this jitter object, jit.scissors and jit.glue. So you cut a video up into as many grids as you want, and then you can filter each one or delay them all. Well, now that's in TikTok. You can have 9 videos all at different times. So now my students are like, oh, I get it. It's a TikTok filter. I want to learn how to make that.
Right, right. You play them examples of video art from the early 70s that 5 years ago they would have been, what is this for? And now they're just like, oh, yeah, that.
Like everybody now has a use for editing together weird little videos, which used to just be like our thing that I didn't want it to just be mine. It was just that nobody had like glommed onto it yet. And also technology took forever to catch up for video to not be so slow and so low resolution. And like, it really took a long time to get there with the hardware.
I think Don Joyce, who's part of Negativland, a very important part, and who died 5 or 6 years ago. I remember in the early 90s, in the wake of the lawsuit, and we were starting to see what was happening with personal computing and the internet, or electronic bulletin boards was new. I remember Don saying his prediction was that collage and appropriation and repurposing of things in media was going to become a preeminent form of creation over the next like 20 years. That was his guess.
Well, also, I mean, you do have to, I mean, once a giant corporation figures out how to monetize it, then of course it's going to be supported, and all the computing power will go towards making more of it.
We can only hope.
Yeah, spit us one last question, and we'll you've got 4 minutes, I guess.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll throw one out and we'll see where it goes. Coke or Pepsi?
Well, that's a good question, but what's your next question? We have agreements we've signed where we're not allowed to answer that. I'm sorry, but no, there's non-disclosure stuff we have with those companies, so it's not something we can't go there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Here's the answer. Oh, you can't quite read that. The mic drop. Connect your wallet. Pepsi NFTs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, I just wanted to say I want to thank you guys.
No. I'll read it. Okay. The Pepsi Mic Drop Genesis NFT is a generative style collection of unique NFTs that live on the Ethereum blockchain. A nod to the year Pepsi was born, each of our 1,893 Genesis tokens are created using nearly 50 unique attributes across 6 categories.
Oh, that's...
Well, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. Need a wallet? Follow these instructions.
Oh, my stomach hurts. Ow.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to thank you guys, Negativland, for really being a leader in challenging the fair use and the copyright laws. I mean, there's the KLF and a few other groups that I think also, did a lot of sampling and pushed some of those limits. But you guys were on the leading and the bleeding edge.
Yeah, we took our bullets for art.
Yeah,
right.
The bleeding edge. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that why guns followed you two?
There you go. Yeah. Well, I remember when all that happened that we agreed that maybe the most important thing, besides speaking out and writing about it and all that, but the single most important thing we could do is to just keep doing what we were doing and keep setting public examples of how this way of creating sound and art was fine. It's legitimate. It's not hurting anybody. I mean, come on.
You don't have to die.
You don't have to die for your art.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
You have to kill anybody.
Yes, we're going to turn
don't
this
have to kill
entire
anybody.
interview. Yeah, this whole interview, I believe, will become an NFT. Is that right? Is that right? Is that what's happening?
It's just under 50 megabytes. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Great.
Well,
Thanks, everyone.
Negativland, Susie, thank you so much for taking the time to have, as I anticipated, a rambunctious conversation in the guise of an interview. Great.